I just had a moment where like, I want to work in Lightning. Like, this is it. This is what's going to scale Bitcoin. This is what's going to help bring utility and actually have Bitcoin flow. Because until Lightning and self-custodial Lightning, it was really still clunky. Like, I couldn't pay you back for coffee instantly. You know, like it would take 10 minutes minimum if it was on-chain Bitcoin.
Hello, I am codyellingham, and this is the Transformation of Value podcast. In this episode, I talk with Umi Miyahara, Business Development Lead at Breez. Breez is a self-custodial Lightning as a service company bringing peer-to-peer Bitcoin payments to apps and services globally with the free and open source Breez SDK. We talk about Umi's journey through traditional finance and fintech startups, her Bitcoin story, and the evolution of the Lightning Network. If you would like to support the transformation of value, please consider tipping some Bitcoin to the show. You can even check out the Breez mobile wallet, which has a built-in podcasting app that allows you to stream sats as you listen. If you have any questions or feedback, please reach out. My emails are always open, hello@thetransformationofvalue.com. Otherwise, on to the show.
I guess for me, my background out of college, so I started working in traditional finance. And I was working in an investment bank doing sales trading. And I thought it was a great way for me to learn about finance and how the world is connected in terms of money, right? But while I was working there for a couple of years, and I was working in Tokyo actually as well.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I didn't know much. And I think it was a lot of luck. I was earning in yen. And at that point, $1 was in the 80s. It's like 80 yen per dollar. And every time I got a bonus or paycheck, I converted to dollars and sent it back. But I didn't know, because I had so much college debt from the US that I was trying to pay that all back. And it just happened. I was lucky that I chose to do that, like convert yen when the yen was actually really strong. And I joined the finance industry when Lehman collapsed. So I graduated in 2008. Enjoyed the finance industry then. So the timing, I experienced a lot in terms of joining Wall Street. It was based in Tokyo, but it was still kind of the Wild West here, very male dominated, and learning about how everything is kind of intertwined, how money moves that you don't usually see if you're just, like a normal pleb on the ground.
Well, certainly in the last few days, it's been really interesting, obviously, with the yen carry thing, which has become a bit of a meme. I don't fully understand the intricacies of it. It's just kind of like a butterfly effect, I think, to a degree. Yeah. But that's been profound. You had, a 7% drop in the Nikkei, and it's like whatever that means, because I'm a simple man, I just buy and hold Bitcoin, But in terms of the traditional world, it's all an interconnected house of cards. And you sort of saw that from the inside. Yeah,
and you see how the big players, whether there's large, long-only money pension funds, or there's things that we don't see. But what's also interesting is how individuals, in Japan, you call them the Mrs. Watanabes, like old grandmas and like oba-chan and oba-chans that are trading Forex. Like, they have power to move the market as well. So like seeing just how money flows, how things connected. And I was always interested in financial freedom and financial literacy, especially for women. So I was always trying to educate myself on how to make sure that I had control over my own finances. And I thought it's really important to educate yourself. And that's how I kind of would be exploring different kind of assets, different things. Bitcoin came up, and I think I first started hearing about it more in 2013. Obviously, I was in Japan, so Mt. Gox was a big deal. And it was hard to buy Bitcoin, though. There was one, actually, Bitcoin ATM. One of the first Bitcoin ATMs was in I guess it's like a cafe bar in Roppongi called the Pink Cow.
I think I've been there, maybe.
Yeah,
it's like a beer place.
Yeah, the Pink Cow. They have good burritos. And they had the first Bitcoin ATM in Japan there. But I was too scared to buy it from an ATM at that point. So I tried to buy it on Coinbase when Coinbase was like very new at that time in 2013, using my parents' California address, but I don't think I was smart enough to use VPN, so I couldn't buy it. They refunded my money back, Coinbase at the time. And I think I just followed the news about Bitcoin for the next 4 years and finally, realized this was something that I really wanted to educate myself more about, that it was really important. I did go in as a store of value kind of mindset, right? Like, how can I make sure that I have a bit of Bitcoin just to ensure my own financial success in the future? And then obviously from a store, you get hooked with the store of value, and then you start learning more and more about what is Bitcoin. But in 2017 was when I first kind of bought Bitcoin, and I wanted to actually put my money where my, I guess, interests were, because then it forces you to keep updated with Bitcoin if you have it. Yeah. So
that's really interesting. And you talk about the Mrs. Watanabe, this kind of archetype of, I guess you could say, the Japanese housewife, the kind of grandma, grandpa, kind of old school personal investors, retail investors, which have quite a lot of power in Japan, because you had this era, the 1970s, the 1980s, of massive economic growth, a lot of money sort of pulled into that generation. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, with the super low, sometimes negative interest rates, it's sort of like, well, what do? You got to look for the yield somewhere. And this echoes a story, I think, that I find very interesting around this Bitcoin workshop I did a couple of months ago, where, it was in Kamakura, where I live, and the people who attended, it was sort of older ladies. It was only about 8 people, but a number of them were older ladies, Japanese ladies who, had sort of historically run the household finances, and were sitting there talking about self-custody and Bitcoin, and it sort of really shatters this image of a sort of young, kind of nerdy, maybe perhaps masculine place. It's actually, what it can mean for women, for families, for older people. I find that really interesting, and I think it's maybe an underexplored area. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, in particular for Japan, sort of like what it could mean maybe for families and for different people?
I think the Mrs. Watanabe's may be the key. The interesting thing, though, why that kind of archetype gravitated towards trading and FX is that, like you said, it's hard to find yield. And in Japan, like, gambling's illegal, other than like the legalized pachinko.
Yeah.
But the other form of kind of quote unquote legalized gambling is like lottery tickets, right? Like the takarakuji you can buy. But there's nowhere else where you can kind of bet and hope that you can become a millionaire, like Okuman Choja, right? And so I think the Forex trading and individual, like, starting with kind of penny stocks and like small cap stocks, and the Mrs. Watanabe's, it was a chance. It's like a lottery ticket, and I think they did come in from like more of like a gambling aspect, but they do have the power to move the markets. And you see on like community threads, kind of like the Japanese Reddits, when in the old days it was like Mixi, and there's probably other ones that I haven't been in Japan for a while, so I don't know what's popular, but on the trading sites, all those individuals kind of come together and they can actually make an impact in the market. But I think Bitcoin is something that would resonate towards that group of women, especially with the kind of the angle of financial empowerment and financial kind of literacy, trying to improve your knowledge about how to control your money is something that would probably resonate a lot, because they probably don't feel that right now.
Yeah, well, I think there's a sense of agency, and I think there's something quite honourable about the saving culture of Asia generally, and Japan in particular, that it's sort of, again, it's almost being abused by the central banks and the state, that sort of people will do certain things, and so they get taken advantage of, and their savings get eroded away through maybe not necessarily inflation outright, but certainly shrinkflation and these other things. And so I certainly think there's a real opportunity for Japan and other places. I've done an episode talking with a guy in India, talking about the way the women run the household finances in India as well, and they buy bits of gold every month, and there's a whole system of a whole paradigm of savings culture that's maybe quite different from other places, and even the United States, which has such an advanced and well capitalized stock market. Not every country is like that. So it's like Bitcoin is something that anyone in the world can get on and get into without too much hassle, right? So that's really awesome. And so you came, Umi, you came from that TradFi background. You worked through a few different companies, and then you found yourself at Breez. Tell me about that. How did you connect with Breez? How did you join them?
Yeah, and after TradFi, I did a lot of business development work at different startups, and I landed in fintech as well. So I worked at a cross-border payments company called TransferWise, or now it's rebranded to Wise, and their mission is money without borders, and that really resonated with me. Obviously, how can we have essentially it's Bitcoin peer-to-peer value exchange without borders? And Wise, it's fintech, so it's still regulated. It's just fiat, still within the fiat rails, right? So I was reading up, I think, about Lightning, and I think 2 years ago it started getting a lot more momentum. Since the white paper was written, it's taken a couple of years, but there was actual utility people making Lightning payments, and self-custodial Lightning payments was something that Breez was spearheading. So I had followed Breez carefully. Roy, our CEO, writes incredible kind of thought leadership pieces that I was kind of, just consuming, and a lot more thought leadership pieces, podcasts are coming out focused on Lightning. And I don't know what the light bulb moment was, but I just had a moment where I want to work in Lightning. This is it. This is what's going to scale Bitcoin. This is what's going to help bring utility and actually have Bitcoin flow. Because until Lightning and self-custodial Lightning, it was really still clunky. I couldn't pay you back for coffee instantly, it would take 10 minutes minimum if it was on-chain Bitcoin. So Lightning really lit up a light bulb for me, where I was trying now to find a job in Bitcoin, but specifically Lightning. So every day I would check what bitcoinjobs.bitcoinerjobs.com to see if there were roles coming up, and just kind of kept at it. And I was in New York, or I'm still based in New York, so attending a lot of the meetups there. There's really great bit devs in New York, and just trying to meet people and connect and see if there was an opportunity. And it was kind of serendipity, where Breez was looking for a business development lead, and it kind of all worked out. Yeah.
Well, it's also sounds quite awesome that you've got all of that experience with sort of the fintech startup stuff, and in the TradFi world as well, because it's sort of it helps ground maybe some of your skills and your ability to develop those strategic partnerships and some of that work you do. So in terms of what your actual specifics are at Breez, and I guess what you're focusing on, what are you doing with Breez?
Yeah, so Breez, we're a self-custodial Lightning as a service company in a nutshell, and we have our core offering is an SDK, which is a software development kit, and it allows any app or service to integrate self-custodial Lightning with literally just a few lines of code. So Lightning, it has a bias or a connotation that people think it's very complex, and it is. It's different than another blockchain. There's a lot that needs to be done for self-custodial Lightning to work, but we've basically removed all that complexity. So anyone can implement Lightning really simply, and our mission is to scale Bitcoin to the masses and make it really easy to have peer-to-peer value exchange, which is on Bitcoin, everywhere, and kind of open up this new economy. We see it almost as the advent of the internet, like Lightning, what Lightning is bringing to Bitcoin. So our tech is free and open source, and we work with various partners. Anyone that wants to have Bitcoin, self-custodial Lightning in their app, I engage with them, we help support them and make sure that they're able to kind of bring Lightning to life to their end users.
Yeah, and you're looking at the partnership and strategic side of it, so trying to find companies who may be considering integrating Lightning with your SDK, and that's sort of your role with
Exactly.
Breez?
Yeah, anyone, we're very well known in the Bitcoin community, so and earlier than expected, we're already hearing from crypto and where Bitcoin is one of many chains, but Bitcoin is an OG chain, and it's important. So where people are exploring bringing Lightning into their solutions, we help kind of with supporting them with their implementation and their go-to-market.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. And I mean, I use the Breez wallet as well, and it's quite cool. It does quite a few different things. You can listen to podcasts and like this one and stream value to it. You can use it for payments, these kinds of things. So, I mean, I agree. I'm very bullish on Lightning, and I think when you understand what it means as a non-credit transaction where the money is going straight into the other person's wallet and there's no intermediary, it's really quite profound. And especially when you contrast it with the legacy Visa, MasterCard networks, etc., which can take a long time to settle. There's all these issues with chargebacks, that we all know about. So I mean, it seemed like quite a paradigm shift. And with your experience with, say, Wise, TransferWise, I mean, what does that look like on the inside? Because I mean, I must admit, it's quite a smooth fiat experience. You go anywhere in the world, you can use it. But to get that smooth experience, I mean, what does the final settlement look like? I mean, comparing it with, say, Lightning, for example.
So Wise, it's still within the confines of the walled gardens, right? So Wise is, I guess, how Wise helps facilitate payments is they have bank accounts all over the world. So there's like a bank account in Wise bank account in New Zealand, in Japan, etc. And at any point in time, Wise could get debanked. Like they could get debanked by, and then all the end users like you and I were unable to receive or send payments. So there's always risk of third party failure, and it's highly regulated. So obviously KYC, AML, onboarding. So the fiat experience is smooth until it's not. So for example, if they have a very strict acceptable use policy. So if you are somehow associated with cannabis or crypto, your bank account, your Wise account could get shut down, and you can't, what do you do with your funds? It takes a long time to redeem those funds. So all these, the fiat payments is smooth until it's not. And it's good if you're able to onboard, if you have the right ID, if you happen to have the right citizenship, right? It's really easy to onboard until you're not. So, or unless you're not. So it's a great experience for a subset of people, for a subset of use cases, a lot of times. And it's restrictive. You can't serve it unbanked. You can, and I even found this as well. So I'm a Wise, ex-Wise employee, and I actually had been using like a demo account to test, right, the Wise product while I was there. And I had actually used I think like my own Gmail address, but also had it tracked with the Wise address. And now I can't even use my own Wise account because it was a demo account, and I've contacted support many times so that I could use a Wise account, and I'm an ex-Wise employee. So, and now I can't make a new account because it's already in the system that I already have an account, like tagged with my ID. So imagine that. Now I can only use other fiat services or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin's a lot simpler.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you're right. The privilege of being able to use Wise, certainly from, say, a New Zealand perspective, it works really well, and it actually is a lot better than the local banks. And so I find, when I was traveling recently, my local bank locked me out when I really needed to buy a train ticket in Frankfurt Station, right at that moment. But the Wise card worked for me and I was able to do it. But as you say, I mean, it doesn't work if you don't have the credentials, if you're not from a country that supports Wise. And it also relies on these, this network of card systems and card networks. Which,
they shut down currencies all the time. I would have to scramble, and a partner might ask me, why is the Nigerian Naira not working? And then I look in the system and it's been shut down that week. So it's still fiat. It's a much smoother fiat, but it's still within the confines of.
It's as fast as the horse is going to go.
Yes, yeah.
I'm curious. Then you grew up in California?
I actually grew up in New York, and then after college, I lived in Japan for over a decade.
Oh, sweet! And so you grew up in New York, and now you're back in New York. I guess I'm curious, sort of from the outside looking in, it's sort of the home of fiat. It is, Wall Street and these big banks and all of that, etc. What is your thoughts on like New York as a place? Do they get Bitcoin?
New York is interesting. It's because of a regulatory law called a bit license that's required. I actually can't use a lot of services, and the services that cater that have like self-custodial Lightning or like wallet Satoshi we can't use in the U.S. anymore anyway. But I can't the Cash App Lightning feature I can't use in New York.
It's just like grayed out sort of thing.
It's I have to use like VPN, but I can't use River, I can't use Swan in New York. New York makes it really restrictive. But that said, there's a lot of Bitcoin development happening in New York. It's just kind of weird place. I think for New York, it was interesting. When the Bitcoin ETFs came up, the subways all had different ads from different like ETF providers everywhere, like BTC. And just New York is so diverse that I think there's a lot of people that come together, and there's a good group of Bitcoiners. But it is the home of, Wall Street. So
I guess though, there's Bitcoin communities peppered throughout the world. But in terms of the vibe on the street, is there sort of a sensation that maybe people are talking about it, or is it really just not an issue?
Not really. For locals, when I go to my local Korean grocery store or like supermarket, or like the deli or the bodega, and I ask, "Oh, do you take Bitcoin?" And they're like, "What?" And then I softly talk about what it is. But I don't push on it. I don't push hard. I don't try to orange pill. I just I try to bring it up as a topic, and if they're interested, I'll talk about it a bit more. But that said, so I have two young kids, and what's interesting is in my parent community, there's another parent that works in Bitcoin. I think there's like two others, one that works in Ethereum, and so it's just I think just being in New York, you can run into people in that sphere a lot more easily than other places in the world.
Yeah.
But my neighbor doesn't care about Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And I guess because there is also I believe it's Wolf.
Yes.
It does the kind of Bitcoin Lightning focused investments.
It's anyone building on Bitcoin, so it can be Nostr, Lightning. They're an incredible resource for startups who want to get support.
So is that early stage or angel?
It's a Bitcoin startup accelerator program. So at any stage, actually, so you can just have just an idea. You can have a MVP product ready or a product already in the market. They talk with companies of all different sizes and stages, and it's an 8-week program. You get to stay in the heart of New York and work kind of, side by side with other startups that are working on building things on Bitcoin. It's a really cool program.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I guess, Lightning, I think it is an amazing technology, and we see just how easy it is to make payments, cross-border payments, all of these things, which, require a lot more when you're doing it in the fiat walled garden. But there's a lot of conversation now around eCash, Fidimint, these kinds of projects that sort of look to go sort of a layer higher in terms of offering more, I guess, speed, accessibility to the broader Bitcoin system. Is this something that Breez is looking at all?
For us, we're focused on Lightning, and we see Lightning as being the common language that connects all of these kind of sub-networks or side chains or things coming on top. And an interesting example is we just released a new implementation of our SDK. So our original kind of OG Breez SDK is based on Greenlight, which is a cloud Lightning node-based infrastructure from Blockstream. And our new SDK is a Lightning implementation based on Liquid, which is the Bitcoin sidechain. So we see Lightning, and we love to see all this innovation come through, but we see Lightning as being the common language that all of these different networks and protocols speak and connect in terms of making, different payments for different trust profiles according to what either the provider or the end user is comfortable with. But in the end, it helps kind of Bitcoin flow and kind of thrive.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. There's sort of been the emergence of these LSPs and different kind of approaches to Lightning, which maybe weren't anticipated in the original vision for it, but which have really become to be quite powerful. And it works really well. It certainly does what it says on the can. And I think it's really cool that the project is free and open source as well, which sort of, how did that come about? Because it was Roy Scheinfeld who's the founder. Was it?
Yeah, there's 3 co-founders, and Roy is one of the co-founders and CEO. And when they started Breez, I think they are very crystal clear on what they want to offer and what they don't want to offer. And they wanted to offer according to the values and ethos of Bitcoin. Bitcoin protocol is free and open source. It's like whatever they build, it's alongside and aligned with Bitcoin. Yeah, it's incredible because it's quite rare. Breez is a true Bitcoin company, like inside and out, the DNA, the people, like everybody, and the technology that we build as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I guess in terms of what's on the horizon for Breez, is there anything you can talk about in terms of sort of where you're trying to head? You mentioned a new version of the SDK, but more broadly, is there sort of a direction or new products that you can talk about?
Well, I think we just released this liquid-based implementation of Lightning, and we see this. So what this liquid implementation does is actually removes the need for LSPs and channel openings, closings, and channel management. And it makes it extremely simple, even for a dev that is not involved in Bitcoin or Lightning. So we really make it easy for crypto to adopt Lightning. Our path that we see in terms of Lightning adoption, especially with the Breez SDK, is beyond crypto, fintech, and then mainstream apps. Like imagine your Spotify or TikTok having Lightning, being able to stream sats to your favorite creators or tip to your content creators on those social apps. So our goal is first now like focusing on this liquid implementation. And if for those that want a pure Bitcoin, pure Lightning implementation, our Greenlight implementation still offers that. So it's kind of engaging with the market, hearing the feedback, kind of continue to improve our product.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it reminds me, but you might be familiar with Fountain, the podcasting app, and I'm a big fan of that. And they sort of, their approach is that, you've got these sats in your Fountain account or your wallet, but they don't really talk about Bitcoin that much. It's just the way you send value to someone, and it sort of makes it really easy for people who are maybe new to Bitcoin or they're outside of this world to just start using it. And it's like, wow, it's so easy. I don't have to pull out my credit card, and there's not all these fees. It's sort of super easy, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you guys are working on that. And in terms of the team, it's a global team. You guys are all over.
We're fully remote. We're dispersed all over the globe. Yeah. So I'm in Japan for the month. And I'll be working from here. But it's the team is really exceptional. Most of the team codes, even Roy, and what they produce and the speed that they produce is pretty incredible. So I'm really fortunate to be able to work alongside them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess finally, I mean, given your connections with Japan, the time you've spent here, what do you see in terms of, say, Bitcoin? We were talking about the Mrs. Watanabe before, but what do you think the future could be, say, for Japan and Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I hope there is a tipping point that comes from Japan. I know Japan, it's really interesting in terms of how technology and innovation is adopted at different speeds, right?
Yes.
For example, you know how when you need to sign something, they still have the ink on and the stamp?
Yes.
And they've had it for a while. And I think it's Japan's
thousand years, I think.
Years. And I think Japan is one of the only countries where like a fax machine still exists. Like people use it for business, especially in certain industries like real estate, and certain like schools. I know some mom friends that had to buy a fax machine because their school only communicates via fax still. So where that tipping point will come for acknowledging an innovation like Bitcoin, I think what we need to overcome is a bit of trauma they had before, because they tried it. I don't know if you were here, but when Bitcoin had a bit of a moment where like big camera and certain stores, like certain big stores, retail stores were accepting Bitcoin payments, but it didn't work. I think it was together with like Bitflyer, and you had to open a Bitflyer account, but it wasn't ready. There wasn't Lightning. There was no self-custodial Lightning. It was a clunky experience as expected because it had to be all on chain. And now we're ready. So hopefully if Japan and, certain companies, certain industries within the economy here can revisit that and kind of overcome that negativity maybe from the experience they had in the past. That's what we probably need to showcase.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's two sides where you've got, on one hand, this initial push for means of exchange, and that, which you said with Big Camera, they were accepting Bitcoin. But I think, come back to what I was saying around this workshop I did as the store of value side, which I think maybe that emerges this time round as the more pertinent piece. And especially with what the yen is doing, the whole situation recently with the stock market, people looking for a refuge that they can easily get into. And it is unfortunate, it still is a bit of a challenge to try and get Bitcoin. I know there's a few places that offer it, but you buy it and then you can't even get it out of the service.
It's locked in.
It's locked in. And so it's very hard to run exchanges here. It's sort of, there's a lot of challenges, but I think as the incentives for being able to save anywhere that's not yen continue to increase. I think, providing people with the tools to take it into their own hands, and I think that's perhaps a bit of an education piece, communicating the idea, because on the other hand, I mean, Japan, they are able to do things incredibly well, whether it's technology, cars, phones, cameras. They're able to manufacture stuff, really well. I'd love to see a Japanese-made Bitcoin miner, for example.
Yeah,
that has,
that's very true. I hadn't thought of that.
I imagine the thinking, because I mean, I feel comfortable saying, just from a cultural perspective, but I think Japanese people, they get into things really deeply. And if there were engineers and people working on Bitcoin who had the passion for it, I'm sure they would come up with, more efficient semiconductor designs and machinery designs. When, a lot of the Chinese manufactured miners, for example, they're just producing a commodity. They're not aiming for necessarily the efficiency. So it's sort of, instead of building the next Toyota car, it's like, let's build the next ASIC miner,
I think you're spot on. I think I just watched something where, and I had thought of this in the past as well, like the Japanese culture is really drawn to hardware, like tactile things that you build. And software is kind of a secondary thing. Like improving innovation in software is not as, I don't know. I think there's beauty in hardware that the Japanese value. And so entering in from hardware, like miners, and that's probably the best way to kind of engage I
think the requirements would also be, because of the cost of energy in this country. I went for a bit of a wander down Codyellingham, which has got a thermal power station. And I was just looking at it and I was saying, man, this is incredible. Like, they got this, these power stations everywhere, and, got a lot of nuclear power, a lot of solar, a lot of clean energy, and, building to the requirements that it needs to be a cost-effective mining machine. They'll just build it to the requirements, and it will be incredible. Yeah. And I think that is what I'm excited about, is that hardware infrastructure engagement. But we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish Bitcoin could be easily integrated in, and all the tap to pay options that you have. You go to a vending machine, it offers you you can pay with 10 different ways. Like pick one.
Like the Passmore cards.
Yeah, like the Passmore or the PayPay or the this or the that. There's so many different options, but that's been so streamlined. It's been so easy coming here, and my Passmore can pay for anything, right? From the vending machine to a train ticket to whatever, and Bitcoin can be that.
Yeah.
If it was just implemented into this whole network that Japan's already built for the NFC payments.
Or even on the back end, like maybe they. I wonder how they've done it, but that sort of interoperability between services, which Lightning can enable. But I still think, coming back to that store of value, I saw an ad for gold on the train. I think more and more people are beginning to ask that question. So I think it will come maybe from a few different angles, but the store of value argument for families who are just struggling, and then the payments rails as well, and certainly international payments. I think it can be quite hard to receive money into traditional Japanese bank accounts. I remember just dealing with troubles all day long, and maybe some of these, like the fastest horses of, say, your Wisers and your Revoluts and that could work for some people, but it's the bureaucracy and the regulation is quite harsh here.
Yeah.
And so something that's open source and permissionless kind of is just a lot easier to work with.
And I don't know if you've come across it, but I know that the Japanese banks, especially if you have an account at one of the mega banks, there's so many restrictions because they'll be closed, they'll be shut down for some days. They're shut down on the weekends, or randomly they'll be like, oh, we're going to go under maintenance. They're always under maintenance, and you can't access your cash.
Even the ATMs go off.
No, the ATMs go off. It's pretty crazy, and just being able to be free of that should be an interesting enough value proposition.
Yeah. That's really awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your story, Umi, and your work with Breez and that. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about or share?
Yeah, I guess for me, I love to support people building on Bitcoin and Lightning. So if anybody is out there that is interested in building or has been exploring trying to build self-custodial Lightning into your app, feel free to reach out anytime on my Twitter or email the Breez website contact form. We love to hear, feedback, questions, just interest from the community.
Yeah, awesome, cool. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I do hope you enjoyed the show. I am Codyellingham, and that was the Transformation of Value podcast. If you would like to get in touch, please send me an email at hello@thetransformationofvalue.com, and I will get back to you.